An endangered squirrel gets a helping hand.
We're committed to doing what we can in terms of funding and providing the personnel to make sure that the species does not go extinct.
The Catholic Church in Tucson gets a new leader.
I've come into a diocesan church that's really running very well.
And a Fort Huachuca World War II veteran is called back into service. This is Metro Week. Welcome to Metro Week. I'm Christopher Conover in for Vanessa Barchfield. This summer's fry fire scorched the home of the endangered Mount Graham red squirrel, but biologists are hoping a new program will help get it through the winter. We'll have more on that and a sit-down with the new bishop for the Diocese of Tucson. That after a look at the week's top stories from the Arizona Public Media Newsroom.
5 fire districts from southern Arizona have sent staff to help with wildfires in California. Eloy, Golda Ranch, Casa Grande, Picture Rocks, and the Southeast District A3S are part of the 25 engines California requested. They've sent nearly 125 firefighters. A spokesperson for the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management said both states have a shortage of seasonal firefighters right now, since most have been released already. November joined the ranks in 2017 as among the warmest months on record. Tucson's temperature is averaging about 4 degrees above normal and could lead to this year being the warmest ever. March and June also set all-time high average temperature records earlier this year. Raytheon Missile Systems in Tucson received a superior rating from a government auditor for its security operations. The Defense Security Service spent 7 days auditing practices at the facility and gave it a ranking that less than 4% of audited companies earn. Their score was 14 points shy of a perfect score. The Arizona Supreme Court this week censured Pima County Justice of Peace Paula Abowd. Abowd was accused of taking an answer key for a test for new judges. She claimed her actions were meant as a practical joke. A censure is the lowest of 3 forms of formal discipline the court can take. For more on all the day's top news stories, visit our website at news.azpm.org.
The U.S. Forest Service and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are spending this winter running a new feeding program to protect a very endangered species. This summer's fry fire on Mount Graham burned tens of thousands of acres. The lightning-caused fire was in the prime habitat of the endangered Mount Graham red squirrel. A census in October found only 35 of the endangered squirrels. That was a drop from 250 the year before. The problem for the squirrels was more than just loss of habitat.
One of the concerns that we have is that they use what are called middens to bury their food for the winter. They don't hibernate. And so when the fire moved through, even if there's some habitat left, chances are good that a lot of their midden was burned or partially burned. And so we're concerned that they don't have a food supply to get them through the winter.
So that's good.
Biologists from a number of different agencies are rallying behind efforts to take care of the squirrels this winter.
We're committed to doing what we can in terms of funding and providing the personnel to make sure that the species does not go extinct.
The plan for this winter includes a first-of-its-kind feeding program.
So we've got folks out here filling feeders, checking cameras, we're building feeders, we're buying the chow, and we're monitoring how that's going right now.
Feeding the squirrels is not just a matter of pulling over on the side of the road and filling the dozens of feeders on the top of Mount Graham. Feeders are well hidden off the road, which means the food must be carried in across the steep terrain. The project is using game cameras to make sure the squirrels are getting the food.
We are trying to document the fact that we've had squirrels visiting them. That said, there are also other things that apparently like squirrel chow as well. So we've had coatis have been a kind of a big problem. Raccoons, I think, was at one of them. Deer, different kinds of mice, chipmunks, things like that.
It may seem like a lot of effort for a little squirrel, but the Mount Graham red squirrel is unique.
It's an endangered subspecies of red squirrel. It's the only population of the squirrel that exists anywhere, just on this mountaintop. And it's been separated from the nearest red squirrels for about 10,000 years since the last ice age. And so the genetics show that it's pretty distinct.
Wildfires are common in the mountains of southern Arizona, but the fry fire was a particular problem for the squirrels.
There have been a lot of things that have impacted its habitat over the years. There have been 4 different types of insects that have hit the forest, especially in the spruce fir that used to provide the best habitat for the squirrel. And we've also had 3 fires since 1996, this last one being the Fry Fire that burned about 48,000 acres. And we're concerned because it's the last stand of this squirrel.
The feeding program this winter is not a permanent solution for the squirrels, though.
It's our plan that it's a short-term project, initially just to get the squirrels through the winter, make sure they have enough to eat. With the projected low population numbers, we don't want to see it dip any lower. So we have seen that there are squirrels out here that are eating their normal food sources, so that's encouraging. And yeah, we don't want to make this a long-term project that they would be relying on us feeding them.
Come spring, the biologists will do another census of the squirrels while also working with a breeding program at the Phoenix Zoo and using satellite imagery to find new mountaintop homes for the squirrels. 300,000 people in the Tucson area identify as Catholics. Last week, a new bishop was installed following the retirement of Bishop Gerald Kakanis. Bishop Edward Weisenburger sat down with us to recount his first week on the job and look to the future. Before we begin, let me say welcome to Southern Arizona. You've been on the job a week now.
I have been on 1 week and I feel very welcome and very at home. Thank you.
And it's been a busy week. Before we began this interview, you were telling me about your schedule. Busy man.
It's pretty intense right now. A lot of people want to see you when you're new. I was very blessed. I was able to go to Yuma and visit our parishes there and also have a mass for farm workers very early in the morning, followed by breakfast in darkness. So we had lights. We could see what we were eating, but it was very early, respecting their schedule. So that it's an annual event, the mass for the farm workers.
I would imagine your first couple of months on the job are just going to be learning the area. This is your first time in Southern Arizona.
Very much, and individual Catholic parishes, it's probably true of all religions, they all have their own character, personality, their history, their background, their makeup. And so getting to know those communities and their backgrounds, it really does take time. But it's very much worthwhile because the more you get to know them, the more you see how they interact with each other in the diocese and how we're all kind of churched together.
Whenever we talk to new leaders, be they political leaders, business leaders, coaches, we always ask them, do you have any plans going forward? I know you've only been on the job a few days, but do you have some larger plans you're hoping to put together?
I really don't, because I've come into a diocesan church that's really running very well. We have very fine leadership. We've had very fine leadership. We still do. Parishes are perking along wonderfully. So I think my real task is, and I'm not known for patience, but I think my real task is to be patient and to learn from the people, because our greatest successes in the church are when we allow the needs of the people to surface. And then we look at what surfaces and we see how we can respond and help to keep the church growing and moving forward.
Churches across the country, around the world, have seen a loss of numbers in recent years. Catholic Church no different. Is there something you're going to try and do to reverse that trend here, or is that just such a large global trend you have to work with what you have?
I'm very probably out of the ordinary, because we keep hearing about nuns, no religious affiliation, nuns. And I'm not sure I believe that anything like that exists, because I think what's happening is there is a new religion emerging called secularism. And I think they're marvelous at catechesis. When you look at the television commercials, the average child is exposed to, I think I read 40,000 per year, and something like 400 secularist messages per day. And when they're bombarded with these images of a very, very secular society, and our voice is oftentimes limited to an hour on Sunday. It really doesn't surprise me the way that our Western culture is going. But when you speak of a loss of numbers, that really is a very Western thing that's happening as religion continues to speak to secularism. It concerns me. It certainly doesn't frighten me, because I think the church in every age, its job is to speak a prophetic and loving truth, as Pope Francis seems to do so well. Speak a prophetic and loving truth, and that continues to draw people to us.
You mentioned the foreign priests. How do priests from another country, maybe Africa, work in some of our rural communities here? Our rural communities certainly have their own challenges. With a foreign priest, do they work well in those?
Quite well, and what we try to do is match up the right man with his particular talents to the right community. And oftentimes we're good at that. Yuma has 2 or 3 priests who are visiting from other countries who are here temporarily. And when we link them up, especially when we can, with one of our native priests, oftentimes they kind of learn from each other, and our communities, for the most part, really embrace them very warmly.
Your predecessor was pretty active politically. Are we going to see a change in that, especially
Well, he was
with the border
probably
community?
more politically astute than I am. I think I'm going to have to work the learning curve. I'll never match that. He's a brilliant mind and is a marvelous leader on the national level for our church. Bishop Kakanis, I was always kind of in awe of him on the national level. But I am very concerned about a great many of the same issues he's concerned about, such as immigration and just what's unfolding around the world and our nation and our state.
Going back to changing numbers, plenty of press over the last few years about sexual abuse claims and things like that. We had some in Tucson. Has the church recovered from that, or is that still an issue when you go out, and be it where you were last in Kansas or here now you still hear about, or is that in the past and people are moving forward?
I sense people are moving forward quite well, and it's something that I very seldom have anybody directly address. On the other hand, I have to be very clear. It's something that causes us continuing profound concern and interest. I think one of the marvelous things that has come out of an extremely painful situation is we've learned how to create safe environments, and we're sort of, in many respects, becoming the flagship of how to do safe environments. So other organizations seem to be looking to the Catholic world, especially in North America, in how to create really safe environments so that you can work in wonderful ways with children, keep them safe, and keep everyone accountable.
As we wrap this up, you said you're not a patient man all the time. Is there...
My staff would attest to that.
Is there anything you've seen, either since you've been here or in getting ready to come here, that you said, that's it, that's going to be number one, that's got to change?
No, I really haven't. Again, this is a healthy church here in Tucson. It's just a good place. It's had great leadership. It's had wonderful lay leadership too, the people in the parishes. Things are just really going well here. I was kind of joking, and one of the news teams just took that one sentence I said and put it out, but I said, my real goal is like a doctor, do no harm. If I can keep building on the wonderful foundation that we have here, we'll be good.
The Downtown Tucson Partnership is in the midst of an attempt to revitalize one of downtown's open spaces. The Tucson City Council has given the group control of the plaza in front of the main library downtown until early January to see if it can turn the area that was once a hangout for the area's homeless around. The partnership has turned the plaza into what it calls the outdoor office, providing tables, Wi-Fi, games, and a slate of events. It's also partnering with nearby schools, allowing students a place to relax during the day. AZPM Zach Ziegler went to the plaza earlier this week and spoke with people who were enjoying the new space on a sunny December day.
Every day I'd come into work and I'd feel bad that people in this beautiful city with this wonderful climate didn't have a place to sit and relax at lunch.
It didn't look like it was very friendly, you know. The police were here. I would see the police here a lot. Definitely no seating, but now, you know, it has a different whole atmosphere about it.
It's kind of been an ignored space for quite some time, but now it's starting to be more active, I guess.
I'm happy for it. I think this is what's going on the plaza is wonderful. I think it's an excellent location, you know, an amazing place, and I'm happy to see it being reclaimed by the larger city.
We do normal Monday meetings every week, so we saw that Downtown Tucson Partnership put this together, and we're big into participating in making downtown more active, more fun, so we just decided to do our meeting down here outside. It's beautiful.
As you can see, we have a table over here where we are collecting names and we're finding homes and services for people in need. In addition to that, we're trying to get them to services that they may need. So if they need a shower or food or counseling or meds, we're connecting them with the services that are out there for that.
It's been like at least 2 years since I've really been down here, like walking around down here. And it's a different atmosphere altogether, I feel.
We have 30 days to prove to the city that we can revitalize and activate this space and open it up to the general public.
It's one of the few cities you can have an outdoor meeting in early December. Definitely taking advantage of it.
The city of Tucson recently launched a new bike sharing program, and after just a few weeks, it appears to be a success. We sat down with the city's bicycle and pedestrian program coordinator to talk about 2Go.
It's working great so far. So we launched a little over 2 weeks ago, and so far there have been over 2,000 rides on 2Go bikes in the Tucson area. As you mentioned, our first Free Ride Tuesdays, or 2Go Tuesdays, I like that, was really successful. So we had about 250 rides just yesterday, with people getting acquainted with the system and learning how it fits into their lives and how they can use 2Go to get around town.
If people aren't familiar with 2Go, let's back up a little. What is 2Go? How does it work?
2Go is a bike sharing system. So there are over 100 cities in the US that have functioning bike share systems and several more throughout the rest of the world. It's a system designed to help people get around town by bicycle. So there are over 330 bikes in Tucson right now at 36 different docking stations in 13 different neighborhoods. So it's an additional mobility option for Tucsonans.
Walk me through the process of how I would get a 2Go to come down and see you.
What's great about it is there are a number of ways to do it. One of the easiest, I think, is just by using the smartphone app. So that app is called Cycle Finder, and you can get it on Google Play or on the Apple App Store. So you download Cycle Finder, or you just walk up to the kiosk and use the touchscreen at the kiosk. You check out a bike, you ride downtown, you dock it at another station, come see me at my office, we'll chat, and then do the same thing in reverse.
And you said there are 36 stations in different neighborhoods. Are they just kind of around central Tucson, or what's the geography on this?
Sure. The service area is mostly around downtown 4th Avenue, U of A, but they go as far south as South Tucson, as far north as Copper. There's one at Mountain and Copper, one at Campbell and Copper. They go as far west as Tumamoc Hill and St. Mary's Hospital, and as far east as Himmel Park. And so, because it is a dock-based system, you have to return a bike to one of the other docks when you check it out. It's important to have a certain station density so that when you dock that bike, you're within reasonable walking distance of where you're trying to go.
I was going to say, is there a concern for a user? Let's say I check one out and I come downtown to see you and I dock the bike and I come out and there are no bikes. How do I get back? Or are there enough bikes that that's really not a problem?
Well, what's great about it is on the smartphone app, you can see, or on the website, which is 2gobikeshare.com, you can see in real time how many bikes are available and how many docks are available at every station. So hopefully you'll be able to plan accordingly. Also, if you come to dock a bike at a station and they're all full, you can just hit a button on the docking station and it gives you an additional 15 minutes to go dock it at the next closest station. But also, our operating company rebalances the system daily. So if stations end up being really popular destination stations and they get full, they come out at night and rebalance the system and move bikes over to stations that are empty. So there's a team working on that every day.
I've noticed a lot of them have, I don't want to call them billboards, but little sponsorship. A city was one of them. Is that how we're offsetting some of the costs, is corporate sponsorship?
So there actually are no city funds going to fund the maintenance and operations of the bike share system. That's all done through user fees and sponsorships. So yes, you've seen some of our higher level sponsors, TEP, TMC, Rio Nuevo, the Tohono O'odham Nation, and also El Rio Health, the Gadsden Company, Caterpillar, the Tucson Roadrunners, Health On Network.
Lots and lots of sponsors.
Yeah, a lot of sponsors, and we're really fortunate that together with their help we'll be able to fund the operations and maintenance of the system. All the bikes and stations themselves were funded by a federal grant.
You said we had a great response to the first Free Tuesday, 2Go Tuesday. How's the response been? I know it's only a couple of weeks, but how's the overall response been?
It's been steadily growing, which we're really encouraged by. There have been over 2,000 rides in the first 2 weeks. And the day pass and monthly and annual memberships have been growing by about 30% each week.
Now, these aren't the fanciest bikes in the world, but if I understand, one of your staff proved they're rideable by riding part of El Tour or all of El Tour on one?
All of El Tour, she did. Krista Hansen, incredible feat. She and one of the mechanics from the Tugo bike share system, Parker, rode 2 Tugo bikes the entire 106 miles in El Tour in 8 hours and 45 minutes.
Well, that's impressive to ride with any bike, but with the Tugo bikes, as we said, they're not the fancy road bikes that we see in El Tour a lot, but they're very functional.
And you know, they're not meant to be. So they're meant to be for short, one-way trips around town. They've got nice fat tires to help you navigate issues in the roadway or the streetcar tracks. They have lights that come on automatically when you ride at night. They have a kickstand. They have 3 gears and a bell.
The bikes that we have, the stations we have, is that as big as the program will get?
We certainly hope to. That was what we were able to roll out in phase 1. We would love to expand the system in the future as funding becomes available. If we see that there's great demand and it's going well, we'd love to be able to bring this program to other parts of the city and expand the reach of bike sharing in Tucson.
76 years ago today, all but one member of Congress voted to join World War II. The war effort put the nation in high gear with production of planes, tanks, and munitions. But at home, it also meant the military had to get ready. The arrival of the war saw Fort Huachuca undergo rapid growth. Nearly overnight, 1,400 buildings were erected on posts, all put up with the purpose of housing the influx of new soldiers. But the soldiers coming to train at the Army post in Sierra Vista were different than many of those shipping off to training bases around the United States. Fort Huachuca was the original home of the Buffalo Soldier, and with the opening of World War II, it would be the training site for most African American men joining the Army.
We make the only claim to house, host, and train all of the units that were affiliated with Buffalo Soldiers. So that's the 9th and the 10th U.S. Cavalry, the 24th and the 25th Infantry, and then the 92nd and the 93rd Infantry Divisions in World War II.
This is the Army, Mr. Joe. This is the Army, Mr. Joe. No private rooms on telephone. No private rooms on telephone.
The U.S. Army of World War II was racially segregated, and many of the more than 1,000 structures built at Fort Huachuca at the start of World War II were meant to take care of the African American soldiers. Most of those buildings are gone now, but standing on top of a small rise sits one remaining structure. From the outside, it's no more remarkable than any other structure. It was made from standard Army plans. But the Mountain View Officers Club is special because it was the Black Officers Club during World War II.
Well, the doors opened on this building in Labor Day, 1942. Now, due to racial segregation in the 40s, even here on Fort Huachuca, black officers were not permitted to entertain in the White Officers Club. Now, this building was originally constructed as a service club, and it became the home of the black officers, so this was their entertainment center. Here is where they recreated, they had fun, they had their families, their friends. They had parties here. A lot of musical plays were constructed here.
Before the U.S. became fully involved in the Korean War, the Army was integrated, and the Mountain View Officers Club fell out of use for its original purpose, but it still stood at Fort Huachuca. Until the 1990s, it was still in use, its final assignment helping soldiers leaving the Army to transition to life out of the military. Their messages of thanks can still be found on the walls. Retired Army Sergeant Major Charles Hancock worked in that office, but had no idea about the building's place in history as the Black Officers Club. He learned of the history along with the rest of the members of the Southwestern Association of Buffalo Soldiers. The group then began trying to save the building when the Army, having no more use for it, decided to tear it down.
And we talked to the garrison commander at the time and expressed our desire at that time to restore this building based on its historic significance.
For nearly 2 decades, the Buffalo Soldier Association has fought to save the building.
Our task was to get rid of the old paint that was flaking on the building, repaint the building, re-roof. And as you see, we had started some of the renovation work on the inside, painting and getting rid of some of the old trash that was accumulated over the years in the building. And that was all done by volunteers.
Now they have a partner, the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The group has an agreement with the Army to begin private fundraising to preserve the building as part of its National Treasure program.
So we've really taken the lead here in trying to identify with a number of other partners and with the Army in particular, the way that we can reactivate this building and bring it back for a whole new generation to use and appreciate.
The Mountain View Officers Club won't be a museum when it's refurbished.
So we did market research, brought in real estate experts, and brought everybody together to kind of think about how this place could be reactivated so that it really serves the Fort Huachuca community, but also serves the broader community to provide entertainment, meeting space, public performance space, those kinds of things.
Officials at Fort Huachuca think that's the plan to go with.
We need it. It would be a community treasure for both our families, soldiers and units here at Fort Huachuca, but also in Sierra Vista and in the southern part of Cochise County. I think it's very clear with some of the fantastic work that was done by the team with the market research to identify that this is a viable community need and could be very successful as a community center.
In preservation, the building's almost always the easy part. The hard part is figuring out how to make it work and how to make it functional and to bring it back to life again. I hate dead buildings, and that's what this is right now. It's only valuable when people get to use it, to get to enjoy it. We don't put much value on museum pieces. This building is not a sort of something that should be sitting in a glass case. It's something that needs to continue to function, to be in the real world, and to be useful and productive the way it was when it was first built in 1942.
Poster's job of refurbishing the Mountain View Officers Club is a bit easier than other projects because the Army still has the original blueprints and...
This building has a twin in Riverside, California, Camp Anza, and that building has recently been renovated and is functioning as a community center. And so I got about a month ago to go visit that building. And so it's rare in historic preservation that you get to see the before and after. And so it was fun to see that twin and get ideas about how really to bring this building back to life.
Rebuilding takes money, so the Trust has come up with a 4-phase approach.
Right now we're looking at the first 2 phases, which focus specifically on restoring the historic building itself and the immediate grounds. And that's about $4.5 million to do that.
That money will come from a variety of sources.
Right now we've got a proposal out to the National Park Service for their African American Civil Rights Fund. We've requested $500,000 from them, and if we're lucky enough to get that, we're hoping that we can then partner with the Arizona Community Foundation and get a little extra funding to be able to do the exterior restoration. If we can pull those funds together and get that grant from the Park Service, I think it's not unrealistic to think that we could do the exterior restoration within the next year or 2, and then start working on the interior components and the grounds in subsequent phases.
The commander of Fort Huachuca is an enthusiastic supporter of the project. While the Army may not put millions into building a new social club, something it could construct new for a fraction of the cost, there are things the Post is doing to keep the restoration process moving forward.
We're working right now with the Army Corps of Engineers. We're working with the Department of Defense at the Secretariat level. We're working through the Army's Installation Management Command to try to solidify this. It's unique. This is definitely a first in terms of this kind of organization supporting this fort.
The rebuild will include some new amenities like a deck and sports facilities, but it will honor the history.
That's a part of American history. And that, I think, should be preserved. We should not be ashamed of it. That happened.
History is what the present chooses to remember about the past. And I think that piece of the Mountain View Officers Club is incredibly important.
All involved hope the sounds of popular music will once again echo through the dance hall just inside the front door in about 5 years. A programming note. Beginning in January, Arizona Public Media will launch a new show, Arizona 360, hosted by Lorraine Rivera. We hope you'll join us. I'm Christopher Conover. Thanks for watching.